afternoon. I felt like gaveling. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started today. We're going to have a hearing on HB 2557. And then we'll have a few comments at the end. It'll be kind of a short committee meeting, I think. But if Jesse's ready, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jesse from the Reviser of Statutes Office. Today's hearing and bill brief are going to be on House Bill 2557. So the other week we heard about the Interstate Compact for the Placement for Children. What this bill does is it enacts that 2007 revised language. So in the current Kansas statutes, there is an Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children that can be found at KSA 38-1201. So the bill before you today enacts the new compact, and then it repeals any accompanying existing statutes and reauthorizes and reenacts those with the new compact language. So Section 1 of the bill states the legislative findings and the declaration of policy for the enactment of the compact. This mirrors 1201, so that's going to be the same language, and that previous one will be repealed by the bill. Section 2 is going to be the compact language. So the presentation the committee saw last week, all of that substantive information is going to be found in this Section 2. So this is that new revised 2007 language. So it's divided by articles. The article headings are fairly self-explanatory. So things that you can find in the compact are going to be the purpose of the compact, the definitions, when the compact applies, and for example, it also goes to when military service members, in that situation, when it will apply, and the interstate aspect of that. Article 4 governs the jurisdiction of the entities involved because you have multiple courts in the multiple states and the multiple agencies interacting interstate. And then Article 5 discusses and sets procedures for the placement evaluation to review the placement that is proposed and to evaluate whether that is a suitable home for the child. Article 6 prohibits placement unless the placement is approved, so evaluated and then approved. Article 7 has language that governs the placing agency responsibility throughout the compact. Article 7 proposes and would establish the Interstate Commission for the Placement of Children. So if you look to the existing Interstate Compact, this is a very new aspect of the new language. So there was no Interstate Commission and powers and duties established in the language previously. So this sets out the membership of the commission with representatives from the member states who have adopted the compact. It outlines the powers and duties of the commission, which includes adopting rules to effectuate the compact. They would also issue advisory opinions, and then they collect data and report on the effectiveness on the compact. There's an article. They also have organization and bylaws, so the commission is told how to do that through the compact. Article 12 identifies dispute resolution arising under the compact. So whenever there's an issue, it can be resolved under the compact, and then other remedies may be exhausted. It discusses the enforcement of the compact and the oversight duties of the commission. There's aspects when it comes to financing the compact and how all the agencies involved are financed and how those are dispersed. The effective date is in one of the articles, and it talks about the effective date of the compact upon the adoption of the 35th state. So the 35th state, once that has been adopted, then this compact is a binding compact. It allows for withdrawal from the compact. So if the state of Kansas or any other states that they no longer want to be a part of the compact, they have to do so affirmatively with legislation set forth in the compact. The sections are severable. So for example, one section of the compact is taken to court, considered invalid. That does not necessarily mean or invalidate the rest of the compact as a whole. And then lastly, Article XVI 17 allows for the commission to work with Indian tribes on how that compact can work for them, especially as we think about federal Indian law and the special placements for tribes and their needs. So that's all Section 2. Section 2, you're going to find mirrors the language of 1203, and this provides for the governor to appoint an administrator for the compact. So this administrator is tasked to work with officers who are in a similar spot in other states who have adopted the compact. This administrator serves at the pleasure of the governor and is authorized to work with any Kansas department or agencies that are needed to facilitate the administration of the compact. Section 4 authorizes the administrator to enter into supplementary agreements pursuant to the compact. So anything that the administrator enters into that would use a Kansas institution or a Kansas service, those items are subject to approval by that department who owns that institution or oversees that institution or provides those services first. So the administrator can enter into those agreements with those approvals. The compact administrator can make payments necessary for the financial obligations that are imposed by the compact, which earlier you saw there were some financial aspects in the compact language. Lastly, Section 6 would require that state courts, departments, agencies, and officers enforce the compact within their respective jurisdictions, putting them on notice to enforce the compact since it's been enacted, and that failure to comply with the interstate compact could result in a Class C misdemeanor. This also mirrors existing language that would be repealed. And so one of the questions the committee might have is, if this language is already existing, why are you repealing it and then putting it back in the same place? So that's allowing with this whole new language for the compact for the committee to make that policy decision that these items are still needed as the revised compact may be enacted. So instead of just carrying that over, it still poses the question, the policy choice for the committee to make.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions for the revisor? Okay, Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Revisor Jesse. You said 35th state ratifies the compact, and I know we're approaching that number. Do we know where our neighboring states are? You know,
Yes, and the agency can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that all the states around our borders have adopted the compact. Something that you may find with other states is that they've delayed the effective date of the compact to align with that 35th enactment. So they may not be practicing it now, but they may practice it once the 35th state has adopted and that becomes effective in their state.
thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions, committee? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to testimony. But before we do that, and because I forgot yesterday, I wanted to welcome Representative Hellwig to committee, who has gladly volunteered, voluntold to sub yesterday, today, and then tomorrow. So we appreciate you being part of committee. Okay, so first up is going to be Rebecca Gerhart, Director of Permanency and Licensing from DCF. Welcome back to committee, 2 days in a row.
2 days in a row, thank you. Chairman Howerton, members of the committee, I'm Rebecca Gerhart. I'm the Director of Permanency and Licensing at DCF. And DCF is here today to testify in support of passage of House Bill 2557, which, as Jesse explained, removes the prior text of the Interstate Compact on the placement of children and replaces it with the new language of the Interstate Compact for the placement of children. There was also a name change included in there, which I found interesting because I think it really changes the focus. No longer are we talking about this compact being kind of generally on placement, but in support of placement of young people across state lines. DCF has submitted written testimony that details the kind of various and sundry articles that Jesse was talking about. During the last few years, Kansas has taken lots of steps to be an example of leadership in child and family well-being practice. We were early adopters of Family First. We were early adopters of the modified licensing standards for relative and non-related kinship homes. We were the first state to pass SOL. We stopped using young people's benefits to support their cost of care. This is yet another example of a way that Kansas can be a leader in child and family well-being. The revised, within the current ICPC governance structure, we are already a leader. One of our compact administrators serves as one of the members at large of the AAICPC board. And passage of the revised ICPC gives us the opportunity to continue to be a leader in that space and gives us the opportunity to have our practice and our policies reflected in early rulemaking under the Interstate Compact. The ICPC is written, so the old compact is pretty limited. Lots of states have interpreted lots of words over the 50, Kansas adopted it 50 years ago. So in that last number of years, because that compact includes, for instance, 3 definitions instead of 28, states have had the opportunity to interpret those practices on their own, which leads to inconsistencies. So how it is interpreted in Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Nebraska, all can be a little bit different. That leads to the kinds of concerns that your offices hear from families who are here in Kansas who wish to have a child placed with them from out of state, but also Kansas families who are supporting a child who might be placed out of state. Our office receives those same concerns. Passage of the ICPC should help us lessen the number of those concerns that we get by increasing the consistency with which the compact is interpreted throughout the various and sundry states. DC and the U.S. Virgin Islands are the other signatories to the compact. The revisions meet several objectives. They provide us with more thorough and updated legal and definitional framework to increase that consistency. It also removes some language that is just outdated. As I said, we passed that 50 years ago. That language has, we use different words now than we used 50 years ago, and this gives us an opportunity to have our statutory and compact language reflect the language that we use now. It should also increase timeliness of placements because for the first time within the purposes of the compact, they actually mention timeliness. Historically, the purposes of the compact did not include any mention of timely placement. The revised compact also provides for a third-party appeal process that has not previously existed for a proposed placement home who is not approved. Historically, if a proposed placement home was not approved, that was the end of the line for that inquiry for that family. Under the revised compact, it creates an administrative appeal process. Doesn't really create, it utilizes the administrative appeal process that we already have. So if a home assessment was being performed in Kansas and Kansas did not approve that home assessment, the family would have the opportunity to utilize the Kansas Office for Administrative Hearings to have some review of that decision. For the first time, the revised compact also includes some enforcement mechanisms. One of the challenges under the current compact is while it sets forth lots of rules and regulations, there is really no way for us to enforce those through the Compact Commission, through our states, in any, appreciable way to support families. The Interstate Commission also includes a rulemaking process that is very different from what is currently used in setting forth the regulations under the ICPC, allows for a period of public comment so that as that Interstate Commission makes rules, they'll be published, they'll have an opportunity for comment so that the world can see, so that other states can see, so that legislators can see, so that anyone can see what those rules are and have an opportunity to comment on those. The Interstate Commission will function as the rulemaking and day-to-day body for the revised compact. In that Interstate Commission will create kind of the underlying rules. So the compact creates the broad black line outline, and then that is filled in with some of the finer details by the Rulemaking Commission. That rulemaking commission will start its work as soon as 35 states have adopted the compact language. States who adopt the compact language later will be able to join that rulemaking commission, but they will be subject to those rules that are set up in that very first 12 months of rulemaking if they're not included. So in that first 12 months, there are a number of things that the commission will be responsible for making rules about, which are included within the bill language on page 16, lines 11 through 25, and includes things like the transition rules. So how are we going to move from the old compact to the new? Creation of forms and procedures, setting of timelines, setting of rules regarding data collection and reporting. They will start setting forth the policy and the practices for that rulemaking, for visitation, for progress reports and supervision, for the way in which the compact states share information and what the confidentiality rules are. They'll set forth the rules of financing the Interstate Commission. They will set up the mediation, arbitration, and dispute resolution processes. They will set up the education, training, and technical assistance programs that are part of the compact. They will put the finer details on the enforcement mechanisms, as well as working with how this compact cooperates with other compacts. So for instance, how does it cooperate with the Interstate Compact for Juvenile Justice, the ICJ, through KDOC? Currently, 20 states have adopted the revised compact. That word is very difficult to get out of my mouth today. Including all of the states that surround Kansas. We don't know, we've requested but have not heard back how many states may be considering legislation this year. In the past 2 years, though, we know that 5 states have enacted the revised ICPC. And so once the 35th state enacts the revised compact, in the next 12 to 24 months, based on the rulemaking process, the old compact will become null. So if any state who has not adopted the new language would become a non-member state to the Interstate Compact. What that would mean for us is that realistically, we may not be able to place children outside of Kansas, and other children may not be able to be placed in Kansas. And they certainly wouldn't be able to do that through the Interstate Compact process. Among the definitions and the applicability, one of the things that is clarified pretty extensively is placements with parents, non-custodial parents who happen to reside outside the state of Kansas, regardless of whether or not they are interacting with, for us, a child in need of care court. The interpretation of that is all over the map. Each state has interpreted that very differently. Under the new language, the interpretation retains consistency with the Court of Appeals case that Kansas has. So the new revised ICPC is consistent with what we are already doing and how we are already interpreting it. So the new language would maintain the status quo for our kids and increase consistency for parents who may have children who are residing outside of the state of Kansas. A couple of additional places that this language includes that have never been included before is support to our families who are either in Kansas serving in the armed services or who may have duty stations outside of Kansas but a resident in Kansas. Military families have never been defined within the compact. Additionally, the new language gives us an opportunity to collaborate with our 4 resident tribes who have not really been included within that compact language in the past. While there is a financial contribution to the Interstate Commission, DCF doesn't anticipate that this will have a fiscal impact. We believe we can absorb all of those costs in our current budget. So the current ICPC was adopted in Kansas 50 years ago, and in the 50 years since, the practice of child and family well-being and our priorities have changed. The revised ICPC provides us an opportunity to update that statutory language to reflect the priorities, for Kansas to remain a leader in child and family well-being, and to be a participant in that early rulemaking process for the revised ICPC. This increases clarity and transparency for families in Kansas and those outside of Kansas. as well as for the legislature and this committee. One of the things that is included within the Interstate Commission is a annual report so that you would get information about the rules that were enacted over that calendar year. So DCF would encourage passage of House Bill 2557 and the enactment of the revised ICPC. I'm happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take questions now. Committee, are there questions? I have one, just to clarify. So we're enacting this, it goes into enactment upon publication, but we have to pass the 35 states and put the rules and stuff. How does that work?
Sure. Thank you for the question.
So what, in the meantime, is it the old interstate compact, or is it this one? Do we operate under this one currently? So how does that work? Yeah.
So if we do an immediate enactment, we would just go ahead and start using the definitions and the language that is within the new compact.
Okay.
Which is consistent with how Nebraska seems to be managing theirs. They actually removed the prior language from their statutes in 2009.
Okay.
So we have, and then Missouri does include some contingency language, but we know that for things that are not defined in the old compact, they're going ahead and using the definitions from if they're not in the old one, they're using the new definitions. So there is nothing in the revised compact language that is so inconsistent with the current practice that we would not be able to continue forward with the current ICPC team and structure under the new language, even before all of the states have enacted the new language.
Okay, so the rules and regs would just stand for that?
Yes, we would.
We'd use the old rules and regs with the new language until the commission is formed of the 35 states, and you guys write new rules and regs?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, just making sure I was getting that correct. Okay, any other questions? Representative Brownlee Page?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have you yourself had an opportunity to see it work in other states?
To see the ICPC functioning under the new language?
Well, no, you want to have the new language come about, but have you seen it in action in other places?
So we have 20 states who have adopted the new language, and of those, 4 states don't have a contingency, so are operating with the new language in place. And we continue to partner with those states. The states with no contingency are Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio, and Wisconsin, and those are states that we have partnered with throughout the process. Like I said, Nebraska passed their language in 2009. Wisconsin passed theirs in 2008. Ohio passed theirs in 2023, and Indiana passed theirs in 2012.
Okay. Can I ask the follow-up?
Yes, you may.
How does it work with the parents? Let's say I have a child, he's been removed. So how do I get to see him? Maybe I don't have the money. Will they assist me, help me go see my child, or work it out at some point I can see him?
So one of the ways that we manage that is if we know we are looking at a placement in a state that is not maybe one of our surrounding ones, that might be delayed until reintegration was no longer an option. If we have a child placed in North Carolina and a parent in Kansas, we recognize that serves as a barrier to reintegration, and so would not necessarily make that placement until reintegration was determined not to be viable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so is this just for children in need of care, or is it for any child, for adoptions, like private adoptions? How does that work with everybody?
Yeah, excellent question. So this includes children in need, any child who's placed for the purposes of foster care or adoption. So a child who's placed for the purposes of an adoption in a private case would also be subject to ICPC. And that is true now. We already do those home assessments for private adoptions.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, you'll be around in case something comes up?
I will.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we're gonna have Carrie Larnard, our child advocate. It's like a repeat of yesterday on a different topic. Good job. Welcome back to committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Carrie Launer with the Kansas Office of the Child Advocate. And again, just as a repeat from yesterday, the purpose of the office is to act as a neutral and independent agency that ensures that our children and families receive adequate coordination. And so when we look at that purpose and we consider whether or not to enact the ICP, the revised ICPC, I stand here in support of Kansas moving forward based on our purpose as well as the concerns that we've received. So OCA over the last several years has received numerous concerns regarding our ICPC process, the impact that it has on our placement of our children, permanency, timely permanency, including excessive delays and inconsistent application. And I think you heard from Ms. Gerhart all of the different provisions within the new ICPC that would try to address a lot of those concerns that our office is hearing. We have made this recommendation over the last several years, both in a case-specific report that came out of our office as well as in our annual report in 2024 and in 2025. So we're encouraged to find that this bill was brought forward and that we're having a hearing today on the matter. In moving forward, we think it's important that Kansas join our bordering states, amongst many others, as part of the initial member state team, specifically to have real impact regarding those rules. And so when we talk about making sure that we're operating under consistent and shared language, terms, definitions, and then improved timelines are the areas that we can see where there would be true impact. And so with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay, so this is just kind of standard language that we're adopting. This is not Kansas specific. We didn't really write it. We just kind of adopted what other states are doing to be consistent, correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair. And as it was noted, I mean, we've been operating under the old ICPC, for over 50 years now. So some of that language is no longer used, and particularly when we're working with our surrounding states that have moved forward, we're now operating under old language and inconsistent language.
And then what is the biggest advantage that you can see to using the new language? Is there anything that stands out?
Nothing that's there's not a specific definition for our office that has stood out. I think the bottom line is that whenever we think about operating under rules, we know that language matters, right? One word, one interpretation, one definition has significant impact. And if we're going to be working with other states, we want to make sure that we're all operating under that same language.
Hence the sub for the House Bill 20 yesterday.
Perfect example.
One word change, yes. Shall to a may, it's very important. Okay, any other questions, committee? Okay, thank you. Next, we have Crystal Hedrick, CEO of Children's Alliance of Kansas. Welcome back. I think we'll see y'all tomorrow too, probably, so that'd be fun.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Crystal Hedrick. I serve as the CEO with the Children's Alliance of Kansas. We're a statewide association representing the private nonprofit child welfare providers across the state. I feel like everyone's kind of done a nice job of explaining the technical components of this, but I'll just kind of explain ICPC and some day-to-day practice and what our members are experiencing. Interstate compacts, the communication between the two states and child welfare happens every single day. It's a complex tool, but it's a necessary one that really has to happen, right? We don't want Kansas kids going to another state where we're unsure if that's a safe and stable placement for them and what the longevity in that home may look like. So it's something that it's necessary. It happens every day. Over the last few years, we've really talked about becoming a kin-first state. We have between 50 and 60% of our kids are placed with relatives. Many of those are out of state. And then last session, you heard us talk a lot about timely permanency, and the longer kids are in care, the harder it is to reintegrate them into their homes or to transition them from a foster family to a relative. this ICPC process can really contribute to that length of stay in foster care. So any opportunity that we have to make sure that we're on the same page with other states and using the same language and processes is going to benefit us. So in terms of like a birth parent, let's say you have a child comes to KU Med and is born positive for substances, their mom might actually live on the Missouri side. So in order for us to successfully reintegrate that child into Missouri, ICPC would have to take place, even if it's 2 miles away. So there has to be those two states working together. In terms of relatives, there may be grandparents that live in Nebraska, just an hour north of our state line. So regardless of the driving distance, those complexities still exist, and those two states still have to communicate with one another. Military families, oftentimes, Representative Johnson, a lot of people in your area become foster parents, and throughout that process are selected as an adoptive family, and then they might get relocated to a different base. In that situation, we have no option but to go through this process. And we also have kids, you've heard of Adopt Kansas Kids, and in some circumstances, we recruit out of state for families to adopt kids from Kansas if they have certain specialties and can care for high medical needs care or high needs kids. So those are just some kind of practical ways in which ICPC significantly impacts time to permanency for our kids, especially when we think about attachment. Every day that our kids are in a family foster home, getting attached to those safe and stable families is another day that they're not with their permanent family that they could potentially be with. So just something to think about. This bill will support a smoother interstate coordination. It was also one of the recommendations of our Child Welfare Reimagined work group that we did as Chair Howerton was transitioning into her role, and Representative Owsley was largely a part of that process as well. So happy to stand for any questions, but just wanted to offer some practical things around ICPC.
Thank you. I called him a dinosaur. He's been around for a while, so we appreciate that. Any questions for Crystal or Ms. Hedrick? Sorry, we're a little, want to be informal. Thank you, Chair. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so is there any other proponent testimony? Any neutral testimony? Any opponent testimony? Speak now or forever hold your peace, right? No, I'm just teasing. Okay. Okay, so we're going to close the hearing on that, HB 2557. So committee, we are done a little bit early. I should hear applause for that. Just teasing. Just teasing. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so tomorrow we are going to have a hearing on HB, what is it? 2589. And I'm call that the non-anon bill. Okay, so we're talking about non-anonymous reporting. We're talking about changing, right now Kansas is a confidential or an anonymous reporting to the hotline, and we're changing that to confidential. So we've not had any informational hearings on that. We did in joint committee, but, so we're gonna open that hearing tomorrow. And then after that, if there's enough time, I do want to work the two bills from yesterday and today. Okay, so get your amendments ready. I plan to work this bill, 2557, on Monday. That is my intention if the bill hearings get short, so, or if there's enough time. Any questions on that? I want to make sure everybody has enough time to do amendments and everything they want to do. Okay, with that, Representative Johnson, you wanted to say something. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to thank KVC on the research they did. I had a question regarding contagious, and in fact, they gave me more than I needed. Very thorough. I will never question you again. Thank you. I am in total support.
Okay, perfect. Information is our friend. We love information. I tell people all the time, you either tell me what I need to know or I'll make it up because it gets fun that way. Okay, with that, sorry, we will be adjourned till tomorrow.